I'd like to thank you all for coming to our continuing discussions of the character of a Vaishnava. You may recall that we began this with the objective to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's vision that the devotees interacted with society as perfect ladies and gentlemen. He repeated that many times, and he demonstrated it himself in so many ways. When he would go on walks in the morning, Srila Prabhupada would go on a walk. And when he would go through the neighborhoods where the temples were, when he was walking, he would meet people. And he would say to them, "Good morning," very distinctly. "Good morning." Why do you think he said that instead of Hare Krishna? Anybody want to venture an opinion on that? Why he said "Good morning" instead of Hare Krishna?
It was relevant to them. They wouldn't understand what Hare Krishna is.
Right, it was relevant to them. If he said Hare Krishna and they never heard it before, they may think he's cursing at them or something like that. But if he greeted them in a way that they were familiar with, then it became an exchange of respect between each other, and ultimately showed that he was a gentleman. And they could appreciate that. It's not that they didn't get benefit, is it? Prabhupada said good morning to them. He's a pure devotee of the Lord. They certainly received the benefit and weren't pushed away unnecessarily. So these qualities are meant to be incorporated into our lives, shown by our behavior, to guide and instruct our interaction with people. And we talked last time about compassion. And I mentioned, I think, that's the important quality or characteristic of a Vaishnava. That he or she acts with compassion to try to deliver suffering living entities from their predicament. But it's hard to say which is the most important quality or characteristic to have, because tonight we're going to talk about another one that I could say the exact same things about. That this is the most important characteristic of a Vaishnava, and that is Shama, or forgiveness. I think even Chanakya Pandit has a saying that the wealth of the Brahmanas is forgiveness. And so it's an extremely important, and as we go through this lesson this evening, extremely important aspect of our daily activities, and particularly our outreach activities. It's something that can't wait. Forgiveness is something that needs to be done right now. And I want to give you an example from my own life about how important not only seeking forgiveness is, or interacting in a forgiving way with others is, but how it has to be done now. It can't wait. As you know, I'm a member of the GBC, and as you may or may not know, in my service as the Minister of Justice, quite often I'm involved in inquiries into activities that are executed by GBC members and others in our society. I don't want to say investigate because that sounds too harsh. But certainly there are inquiries about, okay, what happened here? And how did you feel about this? How did you feel about that? What was your role here and there? That's part of the service I render to the Governing Body Commission. And in the course of that, I have to deal with many, many devotees, big and small, in ISKCON. And so over the course of 1 year, or it's been some time now, 10 or 11 years ago, I was looking into some circumstances that involved His Holiness Tamal Krishnadas Goswami. Now, I have a great deal of respect for Maharaj, and still to this day have a great deal of respect for him. But somehow or another my service put me in this situation. But I felt a little awkward about it. You'll be glad to know it was nothing of consequence, so don't worry in that regard. But still, there was some inquiry. And Maharaj had come to the GBC meetings in Mayapur for the first time in many years. You know, he was involved in study in the UK and before that in the United States, studying and completing his thesis on Srila Prabhupada as a world acharya. And so after many, many years, he came to the meeting. And when he was there, I felt the need to go up to him and say something, apologize, seek his forgiveness if I had done anything in the course of my service that disturbed him in any way. But those of you who may have had experience with Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, or I can just take in my words here, he wasn't always the easiest person to approach. So I was afraid, actually. I was afraid to approach him, even though my approach was to seek forgiveness. So I went to his close associates, different sannyasis, and said, I would like to tell Maharaj that, I had nothing, against him. I was just doing my service, and I hope he didn't take an offense in my activities. And they told me, well, go talk to him. No, but I'm asking you to help me. Can you talk to him for me? No, better you talk to him. I went to about 3 or 4, maybe more, godbrothers, asking them if they could intercede on my behalf and go to Maharaj and express to him my feelings. But they all said the same thing. No, you go and talk to him yourself. But I'm afraid, I'm a little intimidated. How can I go and talk to him? No, you have to do it yourself. So I sat on that for several days, wondering what to do. And then one day, at the meetings, something happened that was quite rare with His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And that was that as I looked out the door, side door of the meeting room, he was standing there all by himself. Usually he's surrounded by so many people, other sannyasis and his disciples and so on. It's hard to see him alone ever. But there he was standing there by himself. I thought, well, here's my opportunity. So fortunately I took it, and this is the point of the story. Fortunately I took it. And I went out to him and I said, Maharaj, in the course of the past year, I had this service that I was doing, and I hope that you didn't take any offense, with my inquiry. And he looked at me very mercifully and he said, no, I know your heart was in the right place. So we're talking about the heart, the character of a Vaishnava, so he could recognize, and I feel very fortunate that he said like that your heart is in the right place. So I said, thank you. And then it was done. It was done, and I thank Krishna for that opportunity that it was done, and for giving me some impetus, motivation from my heart to do something, because to all of our misfortune, a few days later, he left this world in a terrible car accident when he was leaving Mayapur. Forgiveness cannot wait. If I had waited, I would have lost the opportunity. And my life would have never been the same. Can you imagine? You want to do that. The person is there. You want to ask forgiveness. But then, by the arrangement of Krishna, you can no longer do that. You missed the opportunity. So forgiveness cannot wait. And that incident, as painful as it is, losing such a valuable general in Srila Prabhupada's army, I thanked Krishna and Prabhupada that somehow or another I took the opportunity and asked him for forgiveness. It can't wait, and we should know that's a very important thing about this quality, this characteristic of forgiveness. When you see the necessity for it, then you should act. So we're going to talk a little about some of the aspects of forgiveness and illustrate that with some Leela this evening, some stories related by Madhumati Dasi. So let's begin, as we have with some of the others, with the definition. Now this definition I'm going to read is of ahimsa, non-violence, ahimsa, or without cruelty. But I list forgiveness as a subset of ahimsa. So let me read the definition of ahimsa and then talk about how this is a subset of that character trait. Ahimsa means to act in a way that causes the least harm. It is a principle that is referred to often in the Gita. In the Mahabharata, Krishna says that all dharma, all good acts, are dependent on this one principle. So it's not just me giving it such an importance in the character of a Vaishnava, but all good acts are dependent on this one principle. The Gita tells us that a truly thoughtful person will lead a life of non-cruelty and non-violence. Such a dedicated person develops the virtues of compassion and tolerance. In our lives, we need to make decisions every day that affect the world around us. A life minimizing our negative influences on the world helps us to make decisions that are respectful and balanced. A life of ahimsa, including avoiding the harm of offering cruel words, withholding goodness or knowledge, and being neglectful of others. Ahimsa is a principle that informs all our behavior and all our relationships, and which defines our character and integrity. So important. I think probably the most important words in this definition, at least in my estimation, are avoiding the harm of offering cruel words. Sometimes we think that ahimsa or nonviolence without cruelty is applicable to instances like we saw in the video the other evening. But in our daily interaction with others, probably the most hurtful thing are cruel words. And cruel words needn't be spoken just cursing somebody when you see them, but even speaking cruel words about somebody when they're not present. Type of Gramya Kata, or unnecessarily criticizing others. We should understand this is also violence. And so when we think about when forgiveness is necessary, you should also have such a broad understanding so that it includes those kind of activities. So forgiveness is a healing influence, a counterbalance to violence. Either physical violence, verbal violence, or violence even in the thoughts one may have. So that's the first point. It's a healing influence, a counterbalance. Forgiveness is also part of the social order that we live in. Can you imagine a society where there's no forgiveness? Who in this world is free from making a mistake to err as human? Who in this world is not contaminated by the modes of material nature and forced one way or another to commit violence or speak cruel words to someone else? So, social order, in any sane society, social order is necessary. And forgiveness is a very important part of that social order. I don't know if you're familiar with a term that's become popular, not popular, but utilized over the last couple of decades in legal circles and in justice, especially criminal justice situations. But they have a new concept. Previously, criminal justice was you punish someone, you punish the perpetrator, and in that way, by that punishment, he or she is corrected, and then they can again join a functioning social order. But researchers began to find out that just punishing someone didn't really restore social order. So they came up with this concept of restorative justice, where when there's a perpetrator and there's a victim, both of their needs are considered in resolving the situation, in restoring sort of the social order that was disturbed by a crime, by one person hurting another, being violent to another. But part of the mix was also forgiveness. Part of the mix was forgiveness. Many people in this world, they accept this principle of forgiveness very strongly, even when they are gravely wronged. Even when they're gravely wronged. I don't like mentioning these kind of violent crimes and everything like that, but there are some examples, there are some lessons we can learn there from different peoples. Like Marge was saying, how these different animal rights groups were taking that situation with the cows and the calves here in New Zealand more seriously than us, even though that's our issue. They were taking it more seriously than us. Well, forgiveness is a characteristic of a Vaishnava. It's very, very much part of our being. But there are others that take it maybe more seriously than ourselves. There was a situation, it happened some years ago now, with the Amish community in the United States. They're a very isolating religious group, keeps to themselves, kind of a closed society. I'm not sure if there are any here in New Zealand. But anyway, they're peaceful, God-centered people. They had a school and someone came in there and killed several of the children in the school. Very regrettable situation. But as part of this healing for such an incident happening, the members of that community personally faced the wrongdoer, and they told him that they forgive him. In a heartfelt way, they told him, "We forgive you for what you've done." They completed a cycle to make it a complete unit, a holistic approach to resolving difficulties in this world. This is the influence of forgiveness in a social setting. For us, who are focused very significantly on outreach activities to the world around us, forgiveness also has a very special role to play. It's not just about relationships. We're going to talk and give some examples of forgiveness in relationships amongst devotees a little later. But that's not the whole of the subject matter of forgiveness. It's very much part of our outreach. I want to read from you from a purport in Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter. Srila Prabhupada describes what is nonviolence. He says, nonviolence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body, but actually, nonviolence means not to put others into distress. People in general are trapped by ignorance in the material concept of life, and they perpetually suffer material pains. So unless one elevates people to spiritual knowledge, one is practicing violence. Unless one elevates people to spiritual knowledge, one is actually practicing violence. One should try his best to distribute real knowledge to the people so that they may become enlightened and leave this material entanglement. That is nonviolence. So, if not sharing Krishna consciousness with someone is violence, then an attitude of forgiveness is a necessary part in our outreach activities. We talked about compassion in terms of outreach. But if we don't have a sense of forgiveness in our hearts, then they may pick up on that motivation that we're not really interested in helping them. Those that accept that they need help. Of course, not everyone accepts that, but those that accept that they need help, that help may be in the form that, as representatives of Krishna, we're here to say to them, Krishna is ready to forgive you. Please take to a life of loving him. It's very much a part, because if we don't do that, then violence may be what we're committing. So forgiveness is very much part of our outreach activities. There are different levels of forgiveness, and we're going to try to illustrate those for you based on where we're situated in society. There's water in here. In the Mahabharata, there's a discussion between two of our Mahajans, Prahlad Maharaj and Bali Maharaj, about forgiveness or punishment. Now this level of forgiveness that I want to present to you right now is based on a manager's position or a leader's position in society. Or anyone who has charge of dependents. And so the question of forgiving or punishing is based on the position that you have to how you deal with dependents. So I'll just read and comment as we go through this short presentation here. One day Bali approached Prahlad. How are Bali and Prahlad? Maharaj related?
Grandson.
Yeah, Prahlad is the grandfather of Bali Maharaj. One day Bali approached Prahlad and asked, which is actually meritorious? Forgiveness or the use of strength? Means punishment. So Prahlad said, neither forgiveness nor the use of prowess is meritorious in all situations. If one were to always forgive, then his servants, dependents, enemies, and even strangers would disrespect him. If one would always forgive. Always forgive. This always forgive. Was Srila Prabhupada all merciful like that? Always forgive? Anybody have an opinion? Was there?
He didn't forgive Mr. Nair. Mr. Nair?
Mr. Nair. Yeah, he wasn't very merciful to Mr. Nair. Nonsense. Nonsense. But what did Prabhupada say about his willingness to forgive? Yeah. I'll forgive once. I'll forgive twice. But not 3 times. Quite a heavy statement, isn't it? But the principle here our Mahajans are discussing is that if you always forgive, then his servants, dependents, enemies, and even strangers would disrespect him. I tend to think that if Prabhupada was unlimitedly, of course he is unlimitedly merciful, and we're talking about subtleties here that I hope don't give the wrong impression. Yes, Prabhupada's all merciful. But the point is that if he always showed an all merciful face, always forgiving, then we may ourselves think, well, I'll be forgiven, it doesn't matter, I can just go and be a nonsense. Prabhupada will always forgive me. That's always there. The tendency in the crooked heart is to take advantage. So is that what it means by Prabhupada being all merciful? That we take advantage? I don't think so. I don't think so. So Prahlad Maharaj is giving this general principle here, that if one always forgives, then his servants, dependents, and enemies, and even strangers would disrespect him. When one always forgives, then mean-minded servants gradually steal away all of his wealth and fail to respond to his commands. Mean-minded. If you're mean-minded, even more so, an all-forgiving person is taken advantage of. So Prahlad Maharaj is warning against that in trying to answer this question. When should you forgive? When should you punish? He continues, on the other hand, one who simply punishes and never forgives soon finds himself to be bereft of all friends. Indeed, everyone comes to hate such an unforgiving person, and when there is the slightest opportunity, they do something to harm him. Therefore, the conclusion is that prowess and forgiveness should be exhibited at proper times. You know, there's an interesting related story in this regard of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur walking with some of his Grihastha disciples. They were walking near the entrance of a temple. And if you've ever been to India, you know that at the entrance of temples, beggars generally sit there. And they're asking people for money as they go by. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur noticed that his Grihastha disciples who were following behind him didn't give any money to the beggars. And so then he stopped and he told them, you should give. You should give the beggars some money. And the reason why you should give is, if you don't give, you'll become hard-hearted. And being hard-hearted means not being able to feel sentiments like forgiveness and others that are necessary for executing our lives as Vaishnavas. You'll become hard-hearted. So therefore you should show charity. So if we never forgive, then we'll simply become hard-hearted. We'll not be able to maintain any relationships, will not be able to create new relationships in the Krishna consciousness movement. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying, don't always forgive, don't always punish, but what are the proper times for punishment and forgiveness? My dear Bali, the following persons should be forgiven. One who has done nice service in the past, even if guilty of a grave fault. Gratefulness is in the heart of a Vaishnava, even for the smallest little service that's done. So, if we're grateful and someone's done nicely in the past, but they've had some difficulty, then forgiveness is the natural response of the heart. So another to be forgiven is one who offends simply due to ignorance or folly. One who is a first-time offender, one who has committed some wrong against his will, and in addition, other offenders may sometimes be forgiven just to create a good public image. This is again, this is the king, this is the Raj Dharma. The kings are concerned about how they're perceived by their citizens. We have examples in the Srimad Bhagavatam of demoniac kings that simply instilled fear in the hearts of their citizens. And Mars Vena comes to mind. Very much like this, always punishing, not taking the opportunity to encourage, even if it was just to create a good image. So those are people that should be forgiven. But what about those who should not be forgiven? The following persons, Prahlad Maharaj says, should not be forgiven. One who has knowingly offended and yet claims to be innocent. Even if his offense is slight. And a second offender, no matter how small his crime. So there's some responsibility on the part of both sides, those exercising forgiveness or strength and those who are wrongdoers. And life is about trying to get this right. Our lives as devotees is a process of trying to get it right, of being in the right state of mind, that even if we commit some offense, we have some problem, still forgiveness is open to us. And in the society of devotees, this is extremely important. So much of our Krishna consciousness depends upon our interaction with other God brothers, God sisters, other devotees of the Lord. And forgiveness is going to be a big part of that. Asking forgiveness just like I did of Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. And him saying, yes, I forgive you, your heart was in the right place. Very, very important in Vaishnava dealings, this aspect of forgiveness. And so to explore this a little deeper, it was mentioned in class the other day that these qualities are very deep. They go very, very deep as part of our very being. And so I'm going to have Madhavati, do you have a microphone? Okay, good. Have her read something to us which takes us a little deeper into this subject matter of forgiveness. Now, forgiveness can't really be discussed without discussing offense, right? I mean, forgive what? You know, there's some offense. As we said, those offenses are mental, even subtle, with words, mind, body. So offense is there, and forgiveness is going to be discussed or presented in conjunction with offenses.
So this is a story about Mother Sachi and her committing an offense, an apparent offense. Now before I start the story, we had yesterday or day before yesterday discussed about Nityananda, who kicked Shivananda saying. So we had a discussion that how these kinds of activities are on a higher level, but we can learn from these things. So Mother Sachi cannot really commit an offense. However, we see for our learning, this story is presented to us. Here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is wanting to give blessings to everybody, whatever they want. He was ready to give Krishna Prema to whoever wanted it. He was in the mood of giving. And he's still in the mood of giving. However, if somebody is giving you something, you have to have the proper container. If you bring me some milk, I cannot just put my palms out and try to get the milk. It's going to just pour through my fingers. So you need a proper container. I need an earthen pot or something to get that milk. Now what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving us, he's willing to give us prem. And prem is something extremely valuable, or it's something way beyond anybody who could give to us, and Lord Chaitanya is giving, but we need a proper container. For ordinary milk, an earthen pot is fine, but if you get a lion's milk and you put it on an earthen pot, it would crack. The only kind of pot that you can collect lion's milk is in a golden pot. So to be recipient of prem, we have to have a golden heart. And that means a golden heart. So we see why Lord Chaitanya is hesitant to give to Mother Sachi this prem. So I'm going to read this story to you. One day, at the house of Srivas Thakur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat down on Lord Vishnu's altar. Placing the Shalagram Shilas from the altar on his lap, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested his transcendental glories. He said, I am Krishna. I am Narayan. I am Ramachandra who bridged the ocean. I was sleeping on the milk ocean, and Nara, that is Abhidacharya, broke my sleep. I'm here to freely distribute pure love and pure devotional service. O Nara, O Shivas, ask for a boon. Ask for a boon. Seeing that Mahaprabhu was now openly manifesting his glories, Nityananda Prabhu held a great parasol over the Lord's head. On the Lord's left, Gadadhar held betel nuts. In the four directions, the devotees waved chamars and worshipped Lord Chaitanya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Gauranga, began to freely distribute Krishna Bhakti to all of the devotees. He gave many boons. He gave whatever the devotees desired. Someone said, oh, my father is sinful at heart. Please make his heart good. I wonder if Kadiraman had prayed for her dad to become a devotee. He wasn't sinful at heart, but it made him a devotee. Anyway, please make his heart good. That would be a great relief to me. Some devotees asked for blessings for their teachers, some for their students, some for their children, and some for their wives. They asked whatever they wished, and Mahaprabhu granted whatever was requested. Smiling, he gave everyone the gift of ecstatic prema bhakti. Then, Srivas Thakur said, O Lord, please give the gift of ecstatic love for Lord Krishna to your mother. Everyone wants you to give her that gift. Mahaprabhu replied, Srivas, I will not give love for Lord Krishna to her. She has offended a Vaishnava, and therefore she cannot have Krishna prema. Hearing this, Shiva said, my Lord, these words will make us all leave our bodies. You are her son. You entered her womb. Why is she not qualified to attain ecstatic love for Lord Krishna? Your mother is everyone's life. She is the mother of all the worlds. Oh Lord, please give up your tricks and illusion and give her Krishna prema. You are her son. And therefore she is also the mother of us all. How can a mother offend her son? That is my opinion. If she has offended a Vaishnava, then please be kind and break her offenses to pieces. Gauranga Mahaprabhu replied, I have the power to teach her, but I have no power to break apart her offense to a Vaishnava. Only the offended Vaishnav can forgive the offense. There is no other way. My mother offended Advaitacharya. Only when Advaitacharya forgives her son will she attain the mercy that gives ecstatic love for Lord Krishna. When she takes the dust of Advaita's feet and places it on her head, then by my order, my mother will attain Prema Bhakti. The Bhaktas then went to Advaita and told him all that Mahaprabhu had said. Hearing these words, Advaita remembered Lord Vishnu and said, "You all want to take away my life. It was through Sachi's womb that Mahaprabhu entered this world. She's my mother. I'm her son. It is I who should take the dust of Mother Sachi's feet. I do not understand even a single sesame seed of her power and glory. Sachi Mata is the personification of devotional service to Lord Vishnu. She's the mother of the universe. How can you speak this way? Even if a person thinking in an ordinary material world speaks the syllables I, in other words, Mother Sachi, the power of that word is such that the speaker will suffer no longer. After speaking the truth about Mother Sachi, Sri Advaita entered an ecstatic trance and fell to the ground. Seeing her opportunity, Sachi Mata came and placed the dust of Advaita's feet on her head. Mother Sachi is a great Vaishnavi. She is pure devotional service personified. She had the power to hold Mahaprabhu in her womb. When she took the dust from Advaita's feet, Sachi became overwhelmed and fell to the ground. She was no longer in external consciousness. Seeing all this, the Vaishnavas ecstatically called out, "Hari! Hari! Hari!" They tumultuously chanted the names of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By the power of Mother Sachi, Advaita was not in external consciousness, and by Lord Advaita's power, Mother Sachi was not in external consciousness. They were both overwhelmed by each other's power. Meanwhile, the circle of the Vaishnavas chanted, "Hari! Hari! Hari!" Sitting on the deity's throne, Mahaprabhu Vishwambar smiled and laughed. Pleased, he said to his mother, "Now you may have pure devotion to Lord Vishnu. Your offense to Advaita is no more." Hearing these merciful words from the Lord's graceful mouth, everyone called out, "Hari! Hari! Hari!" So, what was Mother Sachi's offense? Vrindavandas Thakur tells a little background of what was happening in Navadvip at that time and what happened that Mother Sachi was not given initially love of God. Prior to the time when Mahaprabhu revealed himself as the Supreme Lord and began freely distributing Krishna Prema, externally there were no bhaktas to be found in Navadvip. Seeing the people empty of devotion to Lord, Vishwarup, the elder brother of Gauranga, was not happy. The whole world was intoxicated by materialism. No one understood the glories and auspiciousness of devotion to Krishna. The people spent great wealth on festivals for their children and others. Actually, I remember reading in, I forget which book, but some other book where described that how Navadvip was place of scholarship, but such materialism was there. People would spend so much money on their children, like it describes here for their weddings and everything, and describe if they didn't have children, they would get dolls and arrange for, spend a lot of money to have weddings for their dolls. And if I'm not wrong, I kind of remember reading, long time, so I'm hoping I'm quoting right, but if they didn't, they would even do that for animals. Am I correct? They would spend a lot of money. So it was a real materialistic society. So basically there was no God consciousness there. No one was aware of worship offered to Lord Krishna or the religion of devotion to Krishna. The learned teachers lectured on material logic. None of them knew anything about Krishna Bhakti. If someone lectured on Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, he would say nothing about Bhakti. Their explanations were all dry. Although he looked in all of the 4 directions, Vishnu did not hear descriptions of devotional service anywhere. Thus he felt greatly unhappy at heart. The only place where he did find that happiness was with Advaita. Thus Vishwarup stayed always with Advaita. And accompanied by Vishwarup, Advaita happily tasted the mellows of pure devotion. At this time, Gaurasundar was still a small boy. His limbs were fair and handsome, and his hair was gracefully curly. His charming form stole everyone's heart. Mother Sachi would tell him, "Vishwambar, quickly, go call your brother and bring him home." On his mother's order, Vishwambar would run to Advaita's home. There, Advaita sat, surrounded by many devotees, including Srivas and other great souls. Smiling and smiling, Vishwambar would say, "Brother, come home and eat some rice. Don't delay." Vishwambar stole the hearts of everyone. They all gazed at the supremely beautiful form of the boy. Completely enchanted and forgetting everything else, Advaita's eyes were riveted on the Lord's face. In this way, on the pretext of calling for Vishwarup, on his mother's order, Lord Gauranga came there every single day. Gazing at Vishwambar, Advaita thought in his heart, "This very handsome boy has stolen my heart. This person who now enchants me must be my Lord. Who else has the power to steal my heart?" Understanding Advaita's thoughts, Lord Vishwambar, who is Sarva Bhuta Hridaya Thakur, the super soul in the hearts of all living beings, quickly returned to his home. Rejecting material pleasures, Vishwarup always stayed with Advaita. After some days, Vishwarup accepted sannyas and traveled about. He became known in this world by the name Shankaranya. Vrindavan Das Thakur describes that when Vishwarup left home, Mother Sachi's heart was always broken with grief. Becoming thoughtful, Sachi decided in her heart, "Advaita made my son leave home." Afraid to offend a Vaishnav, Mother Sachi said nothing. But in her heart, she felt very unhappy. Gazing at the face of her darling Vishwambar, Mother Sachi forgot her grief. The Lord made his mother's happiness grow. After some days, by divine arrangement, Mahaprabhu manifested his true nature. Then he began always enjoying pastimes in the association of Advaita Prabhu. Neglecting his wife, Goddess Lakshmi, and leaving the happiness of his own home, Lord Chaitanya always stayed at Advaita's abode. Seeing that her son no longer stayed at home, Sachi Mata thought, Advaita will take my son away. Unhappy, she said, who says he's Advaita? Meaning equal to all. That Vaishnava is Dvaita, full of duplicity. He has already driven away one of my moon-like sons. Now, he will not leave my other son alone. I'm a helpless widow. No one is kind to me. To the world, he's Advaita. But to me, he's Dvaita Maya, full of duplicity. This was the entirety of her offense. There was nothing more than that. Yet, because of this offense, Lord Gaurasundar would not give his mother devotional service.
Thank you for the dramatic reading. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took offenses to Vaishnavas so seriously that even his own mother, he withheld giving her Krishna prema. But once she sought and received forgiveness of the Vaishnava, then there was no hesitancy. I think that, what book is that from? Chaitanya Bhagavat describes a couple of different reasons why he publicly did this, why he publicly refused to give love of God to his mother, Sachimata. And the primary reason was to instruct about the danger of offenses to Vaishnavas, as well as how we can get relief from those offenses. This theme is there many times in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We know there's a story of Maharaj Ambarish and Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni was so-called offended. He thought that Ambarish Maharaj offended him. And in his trying to punish Maharaj Ambarish for that, he invoked the trouble of Vishnu's disc, who chased him all over the universe. And when he finally got to Lord Vishnu told him that Vaishnavas, saintly persons, are my heart, and I can't even forgive you. They're so dear to me, I can't even forgive you for an offense to them. But how will you get forgiveness? Who can say? How you would get forgiveness? No one knows? Go back to Ambarish Maharaj and get forgiveness from him. That way you can be relieved of the pressure of this Sudasan disc. So subtle are the relationships that Advaita didn't even take offense. He didn't even take offense. But still, her offense had to be rectified. There's another story about Srila Rupa Goswami, and it even goes deeper. First, Advaita and Mother Sachi, devotees of the Lord, in Leela, obviously, they have their eternal positions in tattva truth. But deeper, Rupa Goswami and a Vaishnava in Vrindavan. Rupa Goswami was in trance, he was in samadhi, meditating very deeply on the pastimes of Krishna. He was seeing in his meditation the gopis who were dressing Radharani's hair in a secluded grove. And he appeared behind Srimati Radharani. And the other gopis knew he was there, but somehow or another, for the Leela, Radharani did not know he was there. So they gave Radharani a mirror, and when she looked in the mirror, she saw Krishna's moon-like face over her shoulder. So Rupa Goswami was enjoying this Leela when Radharani saw Krishna's face and was surprised and acted shyly, covering her head. Rupa Goswami smiled. Just at that point, when Vaishnava came to see Rupa Goswami, he had some problem with his legs, so he was walking funny with the stick. And when he approached Rupa Goswami burst into laughter in his ecstasy. But that Vaishnava took it that Rupa Goswami was laughing at him because of the way he was walking in a kind of a crooked way with his stick. And he went away from that place, that Vaishnava went away from that place, and he went straight to see Sanatana Goswami. And when he got to Sanatana Goswami, he opened his heart. I came before Rupa Goswami and he was laughing at me. I can't understand why he did that. Sanatana understood that there was some misunderstanding here. And as he was talking to that Vaishnava, Rupa Goswami came upon the scene. Because once his meditation broke upon laughing and the Vaishnava taking offense, he wondered, why did my meditation break? And so he also went to see Sanatana Goswami. That Vaishnava and Rupa Goswami met, each offering at Sanatana Goswami's place, each offering obeisances and begging the forgiveness of one another. In this instance, Rupa Goswami was engaged in the Leela of the transcendental world. There was no offense on his part. He didn't commit an offense. He didn't think offensively, as we saw in Mother Sachi. He was just absorbed in Krishna Leela. Yet, because the Vaishnava took offense, his meditation, his ability to see in trance the pastimes of Radha and Krishna was impeded. Just see how serious it is and how subtle the relationships of Vaishnavas are, and how careful we have to be not to commit offense. So if offense is committed, how careful we have to be to always ready to forgive that offense. So this quality of forgiveness is very, very important in our lives. Intentionally, unintentionally, some offense may be taken in society and in the association of devotees. So therefore, we always, every day, as part of our morning program, what do? Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhuvescha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. We're always ready to offer obeisances to the Vaishnavas and beg for their forgiveness. There's one bhajan in this regard that Madhumati is going to sing and give the translation to us for. You could even sit down. I'm going to say who wrote the bhajan also.
I think the story here that you just mentioned was written by Narahari Chakravarti in Bhakti Ratnakar. So he's the author of this bhajan as well. So I'm just going to say the verse and the English one at a time. O he bhai Vaishnave Tesa bandhana habe Prana prana kariyapa Radha Shamaive. O my brothers, please be very careful in dealing with the Vaishnavas. Beg their forgiveness for any offense with your heart and soul. Vaishnavera dosha drishte have sabhadana nirantara karive Vaishnavera gunagana. Be careful not to see a Vaishnav's faults and always sing their glories. Purva Purva Bhagavata Gana Ekaya Vaishnavera Kriya Mutra Vigyena Bhujaya. All of the previous great devotees have said, no one can understand the behavior of a Vaishnava. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Priya Bhakta Dware Anyera Dilena Siksha Eita Prakare. Although Srila Rupa Goswami is a highly elevated devotee, very dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord used him to teach all of us of the dangers of Vaishnava aparad. Bhakta pada padma dhari mastaka upara bhakti rasa saya redu bahanirantara. Hold the devotee's lotus feet to your head and always dive in the nectar of pure devotional service.
Thank you. So are there any questions or discussion anyone has about this subject matter? Yes, Prabhu. Oh, well, I was referring to the gentleman behind you. Yes, Prabhu.
Earlier you were talking about softening the heart, and you gave the example of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati instructing his Grihastha disciples that they should give some charity to the beggars. Something that sometimes can be confusing of what to do in this situation, because we hear that sometimes the heart wants to give, but then also the intelligence kicks in, because we've heard that one should give charity in the mode of, in the right mode of goodness, or we're not sure of what the intentions of the receiver, how they're going to, if it's a homeless person, perhaps they're just going to use it to buy alcohol or meat, or what's the sort of higher principle?
Yeah, he's asking about when to give charity, because we can see that sometimes the person you give to is just going to make things worse for themselves, karmically, etc., and yet we have this instruction that's given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's personal example. So the higher principle that I think that we should search here is this idea that he was saying is that the heart should not become hard. We shouldn't become controlled by rules and regulations, because that's not going to get us love for Krishna. And so, if our heart remains soft, then we can hear the instruction of Krishna. We can hear him when it's appropriate, when it's not appropriate to give in charity. Generally speaking, we're going to follow the rules and regulations. But if our heart is soft, then we can hear Krishna's message that, here, give this person something. They deserve something. And last night we were hearing the story about some beggars who were actually, maybe they were just taking from others, but they took from the devotees. And I took from that lesson last night from the lady that was describing it, that we have to keep an open mind to give Krishna consciousness to anyone and everyone, because we may make assumptions about them that would prevent us from giving them Lord Chaitanya's mercy. We have to refrain from that. And that's something that's going to happen with a soft heart. If we become hard-hearted against all beggars, and then we may miss giving the opportunity to somebody that will eternally benefit. So I think the balance is, the decision-making is how our heart remains soft. And follow that dictate rather than some rules and regulations. Yes?
Because we have different personality types, and you were saying the case that the devotee didn't realize he had offended, the Rupa Goswami didn't realize he had offended the Vaishnava. So how do we know when we've offended someone if we didn't do it on purpose, but that person didn't offend?
Well, we always have to be humble in our relationships with devotees particularly. I think there are instances that I recall having to deal with as a temple president where people in the temple acted in such a ways, and others took offense to that, and rather than dealing with the person, they came to the temple president to say, well, this person's doing this and this. And I always try to create a culture of openness and discussion amongst the devotees so that one could easily approach one. In other words, if we maintain a character, a forgiving nature, then if we offend someone, that person can feel comfortable enough to come and say that, and inquire from us, I was feeling like this way, and then there can be some discussion, some heartfelt exchange between the two. Both Vaishnavas can offer obeisances to one another, and it can be resolved rather than just festering. So I think we always have to keep this forgiving nature in our hearts when you're dealing in the association of devotees. And then unintended or unknowing offenses don't mount, but can be discussed with and dealt with and resolved by obeisances to one another. You answered my question. All right, let me get some people in back here.
Thank you for the class, Prabhu. There's a saying in India that the rich beg inside and the poor beg outside. And in chapter in Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned that how we should be careful giving the donations. So I would like, if you could please explain a bit more about the bhiksha and a dana. So what is the difference between that, and how do we understand before giving the, because English word is just donation or yes.
Well, I would like to focus here, with your permission, on this idea of forgiveness as the main function rather than dealing with those things. That's okay.
Yeah.
So, on forgiveness. Yes.
If Krishna was governing the government, and people not Krishna conscious, most of them not, what will you do if people steal or murder? You can say, okay, I forgive the first time, and then the second time they do it long term. It wouldn't work because people are, they're greedy and they want to have another car. So what's your opinion?
Well, let me give you an example that from Srila Prabhupada's dealing with that kind of issue. When Srila Prabhupada would tour America, one time he went to Chicago, and the devotees arranged to bring the police commissioner to meet him. And the police commissioner of Evanston, Illinois, which is a town just right outside Chicago. And so Srila Prabhupada was basically taking the position of instructing him as if the police commissioner was ready to use all of his authority and power to do something to stop crime in society. And so Prabhupada said that if you give us a big building, arrange for us to have a big building, and we'll arrange to hold Harinam Sankirtan in there. And by the process of getting criminally minded people to chant Hare Krishna, they'll be purified, and that will take care of the crime problem. So he never deviated from giving direct Krishna consciousness as the solution. And so if there was a leader, a Krishna conscious leader in authority, then he or she would try to promote the practices of Krishna consciousness as the solution to all social and material problems. So that's...
Maybe you can offer that in a prison, in New Zealand prison.
Well,
Why not?
actually, many devotees do preach in India. They have prison programs where they go and there, because it's like a Hindu state, they have all the prisoners have to come, and they set them all in rows and everything like that. And the devotees go and they lecture and they have a big Harinam Sankirtan. And in the United States, there's also a lot of prison preaching programs, outreach programs, and so. But it's a straight thing. Take Krishna consciousness, chanting. Actually, some of the ladies were going to a women's prison in Florida, and the authorities stopped them for going because, you know, the ladies said that we're going to be teaching yoga and everything, but when they were just chanting chanting Hare Krishna, and they couldn't understand that as yoga, so they said, no, you can't come, you know, into the prison anymore. So.
And they had such a good time. And all the ladies were like dancing like anything. They really had a good time chanting Hare Krishna. But,
I think because they want to promote Christianity, no?
Yeah.
no, that is why, because they had a Christian thing, and yes, that's exactly why.
But if we get the opportunity, just like forgiveness, you can't wait, you have to do it right away. If we get the opportunity, we'll give them a direct Krishna consciousness and do it as long and as well as we possibly can. So other points, anyone else? Yes.
What's the best way to ask?
What's the best way to ask for forgiveness? Well, asking for forgiveness can't be done artificially. It will be detected immediately by the person we're asking forgiveness from. That you're just, saying that, it's not heartfelt. So first of all, it has to be heartfelt. And we offer our obeisances. We offer to rectify by serving that devotee in some way, doing something for them to get their favor. In the instance we read about Sachimata and Advaitacharya, she took the dust from his feet, and that was how she begged his forgiveness and received his forgiveness.
Yeah, on the point of forgiveness, you cited the example of the Amish community when there was a case of murder. I'm thinking maybe some of the group of the parents perhaps didn't want to forgive, but maybe under social pressure they had to do it because they're part of the group and they want to portray themselves as forgiving society. So, but maybe they still have that, their feelings towards the offenders. So the question is how we develop that heartfelt forgiveness instead of like we can intellectually or philosophically forgive externally, but how we forgive internally.
how do we develop a heartfelt forgiveness and not do it according to social pressure or other reasons? I think that we have to practice. We have to practice forgiveness, just like we have to practice chanting Hare Krishna. I asked Devarita Maharaj after the class this morning, and we were walking back to where we're staying. When does it become real? Philosophically or intellectually, everything you said was right on, great, but when do we actually feel that Krishna prema, those different levels of love and everything? And he explained that we're not like nectar or prema hounds or something like that. We execute service, we study the Shastra, we cultivate that way. And those feelings, a real feeling, that's a gift of Krishna. And it'll come when he gives it. Ours is just to go and understand philosophically and to practice our sadhana and depend upon Krishna to bestow those feelings of ecstasy on us. So the same kind of thing in terms of what you're asking, what is heartfelt request for forgiveness? Well, we know what forgiveness is, how to do it, how to approach the devotees, and we try to do it with as much sincerity as we have and is deserving in the situation. And in that way we practice. We practice, and if we do that genuinely, then the feeling will come. The feeling will definitely come. I gave the example at the beginning of myself with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I'm not going to say that I had transcendental feelings of happiness at begging for forgiveness and then being given forgiveness by him, but certainly there's some feelings there, enough for me to go to the next step and practice it again and practice it again. And the transcendental emotion, the genuine feeling from the heart. Prabhupada also gave a story about that, about obeisances. Gargamuni Prabhu told him, Prabhupada, I don't feel like offering obeisances. Just do it, the feeling will come. So we practice forgiveness. And I think that, especially when we practice that amongst our peers, our godbrothers, our godsisters, then we do feel something. We feel, at the very least, if not transcendental connection with our godbrothers, at the very least a human connection with Vaishnavas, who are special people. So by practice, we can bring this feeling in our heart. Yes?
From where do we get the strength to ask forgiveness first when there's been conflict?
Where do we get the strength to ask forgiveness first when there's a conflict? By knowledge. We're cultivating knowledge. If we don't have feelings, remember we talked about those 3 levels of motivation for compassion. They were, I know the second was mission. What was the first one? Knowledge, mission, and love. Okay, we may not be motivated by love, but we may be motivated by knowledge, because we cultivate knowledge in our daily practice of Krishna consciousness, that the best thing for me to do is to go and ask forgiveness here. And when we do, we get some reciprocation, and we think, well, maybe the next time it's a little bit more on the love platform. So again, it's a process we practice. Anything on this side? Yes?
You touched on it with the previous 2 questions, but there's the act of asking for forgiveness and there's the act of giving forgiveness. And on a more subtle level, if you don't grant forgiveness because you feel hard done by, and how does that work in the heart to create hard-heartedness? Is it coming from a subtle pride or selfishness when you don't grant forgiveness? Can you tell me what's happening?
Yeah, not granting offense, not granting forgiveness when asked is offensive. Because and you point correctly about it, it's coming from a hard heart, a heart that's holding on to self-destructive things. Now, I'm not a psychologist or haven't studied that and haven't preached on that kind of level, but if we get up here devotees that have that experience, they'll tell you how holding on to hurt and not forgiving is like, what do they say, you're pointing fingers at yourself or something like that. You're harming yourself by doing that. So better to let them go, especially if a Vaishnava comes and begs for forgiveness. How can you withhold it? How can you withhold it? How hard does it have to be when someone comes and, especially a devotee, a Vaishnava, because what are they going to do? They're going to get on the floor, and start rolling around and touching your feet, And you're going to be, no? That's really hard. Hopefully we haven't got to that point where that's something really.
Sometimes the hurt is so deep. It's not necessarily pride. Yeah, sometimes the hurt is so. I guess I've experienced that, where I have asked forgiveness and for something that I didn't do, but for whatever misunderstanding, the hurt was so deep that they didn't forgive. They couldn't forgive. And then in those situations, and I don't think so it's pride, or I think so the hurt is deep.
So there are two people. The hurt is deep, yes. That person asking for forgiveness and they don't receive it, what should their response be? Should it be that their heart become hard, or should they lament that I haven't got it yet and continue to try to get it? That person who's withholding forgiveness also has some soul searching to do, to try. That person, I think they both have to sort of step back, wind it back again and try again, because we do have to get beyond, And it may not happen immediately, but it has to be worked at. Other questions? Yes.
What's the difference between suppression and forgiveness?
Suppression and forgiveness?
Because one might want to, for example, forget something or forgive something, but like the anger can go inside and come out when one is tired and make one a little bit mental, or when one is chanting, that's like the perfect time that the mind is disturbed with all these things, even if one might want to forget it. So what's the difference between suppression and forgiveness?
Aren't you a psychologist? Is Mataji here? Can you answer that question?
Well, I guess it depends on the context. I mean, there's so many variables in that question. So the context, if the person's genuinely asking for forgiveness, or whether it's something they're doing again and again and just going, oh, please.
So they may not have asked for forgiveness, but like as a devotee, you just want to forget it, so that it doesn't disturb you.
Well, I think sometimes it's acknowledging it and identifying the emotional experience that you have from feeling that, not suppressing that emotion, going, it doesn't exist, it didn't happen. It's acknowledging that emotion, seeing how that's linked to what's happened or how you think about what's happened, and resolving it rather than suppressing it.
These are spiritual principles, but obviously, as she points out, they have deep psychological things have to be dealt with as well, and so it's.
Does it have something to do with accepting that it's our karma rather than trying to blame someone?
Probably, yes. Just a minute, there was one lady in the back here. Yes.
I was just wondering, I've heard before that a devotee actually doesn't take offense. So does that mean that Does that mean that they forgive when a devotee asks for forgiveness? Is that the correct understanding, or am I not understanding?
Well, if one doesn't take offense, then naturally if someone asks for offense, then I think a genuine Vaishnava feels that if someone is asking me, if I'm asking someone for forgiveness, and that person feels like, well, I didn't take any offense from you, but still they'll give me some shelter. They won't just say, well, I didn't accept any offense, just go away. But no, they'll give shelter, I didn't take any offense, but let me reciprocate with you at this point in time, so that if you're feeling that way, you get some relief from those kind of feelings. Yes?
So during the story that you told about Rupa Goswami and the Vaishnava who had offended him, you mentioned that Rupa Goswami had not made any external or internal offense towards the Vaishnava who did offend him, and yet still he went and offered his obeisances and asked for forgiveness. So it brought to my mind that, in Vaishnava dealings we may not be externally manifesting some offense, but internally on the mental platform we may be committing offenses to other devotees, and this can really inhibit our having genuine relationships with each other. So how does one go about conquering those mental offenses and
Well, always maintaining a humble attitude in dealing with devotees. And as I said, as part of our sadhana, we chant Vanchika Vachuvaja, Krisamiraja. We keep that verse as prominent in our mind, in our heart, in our dealings with devotees, so that if someone does take offense, at least they know that, our heart is, begging for forgiveness for any offenses, knowingly or unknowingly committed. Even in the deity worship, there's mantras for offenses knowingly or unknowingly committed in the deity worship. So when we're interacting with Vaishnavas, we may knowingly or unknowingly commit offense, or not commit offense, and people may take our actions and be offended one way or another. So we should always be ready to offer our respects. I think that we're way over time here. Or should we stop at this point? Or? Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.